Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Kevin, and wow, we're starting out 2026 with some really strong subject matter, um, much of which we've not covered before. Musk's Neuralink, brain chipping, the cyber agenda. We are going to talk about the court case against Cardinal Dolan and the others involved in the Joe Moreno murder. And we've also got the Lucifer telescope. So, huge thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. Hope you're all having a great new year. And where would you like to start from all these subjects, Kevin?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Happy New Year, by the way, to everyone. And I wanted to just mention, if you haven't heard, today on the news, the United States, after blockading Venezuela, went in and kidnapped the president, the head of state of Venezuela, he and his wife. And Trump has announced, I'm running the country now. And I think that this sets the tone for today's discussion because he's very involved in this whole Neuralink brain chipping thing through his buddy, Elon Musk. And when you look at it geopolitically, he's securing his southern border, definitely, not only to get the oil and gas in Venezuela, but the Chinese incursion. And we're concerned that his next step is to secure the northern border, because here in Canada, I'm right on the west coast right now in British Columbia. The Chinese have been airlifting troops in, not as troops, but as security personnel for the last several months to secure the oil and gas in northern Canada. There could be a shooting war here. I mean, we're after he just invades a non-belligerent country out of the blue and takes out the president, he's capable of anything. So we're prepared for anything. And we wanted to put that in the light of the discussion today, because, I mean, if we have to go off the radar for a while, you'll know why, because we're right on the front line here. And, you know, we can talk about that, but I think it's important to keep that in mind, kind of as the general context. Let's start with a recap. So in the last show, we've talked about all the evidence linking this Cardinal Timothy Dolan with the death of this priest, Joe Moreno. And I've been working with his sister, Sue Moreno, and some really great people in Buffalo, New York, where he died. And it's clear that there was a whole conspiracy to take out this priest who had been gathering information on child trafficking by the Catholic Church all through that area. And he was on the verge. Monday morning, he was going to take it to the FBI. He's found dead in his church office on Saturday. 2 bullet holes to the back of the head. Police say it's suicide, right? Even though he had a bad left hand. So his right hand, try this. Try bringing your right hand around to the back of the left side of your head and shooting yourself twice. You know, it doesn't work, people. So all of that, you know, kind of disregarded by the cops. Now, when we announced the launching of a court case against Dolan and other people in Buffalo for this, Dolan already convicted, by the way, along with Trump, of child trafficking in the October 6th court case we did in Europe. We announced it December 16th. Dolan resigns the next day on the 17th as Archbishop of New York. And the district attorney, John Flynn, who had covered up all of the evidence around the murder of Joey, he also resigns. Okay, so I mean, you can say that's all a massive coincidence within a 24-hour period, but you know, we doubt it. So in the context of that, we said, okay, then we're going to convene this court in the new year to bring formal charges, not only against him, but there's 5 or 6 other Catholic clerics, archbishops and others in the Buffalo area who are implicated in not only his murder, but that whole climate of child trafficking and a number of priests who've actually disappeared when trying to raise this issue. So in the course of that, we began to investigate federal government records, and we have access to them through insiders and public sources. And we immediately came across, the investigators for the court immediately came across this whole new area whereby Dolan, as the cardinal, senior cardinal, no, don't forget, he's the one who Trump wanted to put in as pope, right? And instead this Robert Prevost from Chicago got put in as Leo. But we found that Cardinal Dolan was the head of this thing called the Catholic Relief Services, $476 million, okay, $500 million. And here's where Musk enters the scene. Do you remember for 4 months he was appointed by Trump to set up this thing called DOGE, D-O-G-E, Department of Government Efficiency. Now, it's an interesting choice of words because a doge was a medieval monarch in the city-states of Venice and Genoa. And a doge had absolute power. And they were closely connected, of course, to the church. They were like buddies with the Pope, right? Musk started this thing called Dogecoin a number of years ago with one of his buddies who figures into the whole neural chip thing that we're going to get into, Jared Birchall. He's Musk's right-hand man. He's a top Mormon official, and he's been involved in this stuff all along. So keep those names in mind. So Musk is set up for 4 months alone. It's a limited contract to check out government efficiency, right? And the first thing he does, one of the very first things he does, he sacks the 20 employees that have oversight over, guess what? Neuralink. Just sacks them, boom. Now this rang a bell with me immediately because in my research in genocide in Canada, when right on the verge of the Canadian government and churches beginning their big extermination of children in the Indian schools in the early first decade of the 20th century, they abolished all medical inspection in the Indian schools. There are all these reports coming out about children being contaminated, killed by staff, and what do? They abolish all medical inspection. So you establish secrecy right on the verge of a big slaughter, right? And that's what he did. He got rid of all the oversight over Neuralink. And then, we find from this evidence that Dolan was channeling this Catholic Relief Services money into Neuralink funding, because don't forget, this is a massive secret project. It has no accountability. There's no oversight. They don't publish their the clinical trial results of any of the experiments they're doing. And that's kind of like an intro into this whole thing. Now, for people who don't know what Neuralink is, it's a microchipping process whereby, and Musk is open about this, he describes it as the symbiotic merger of human and digital intelligence. And when you look up the evidence on this, what it is, it's a chip that's inserted directly into the brain. It integrates its wires with the cerebral synapses in the brain that govern higher functions like cognitive ability, the ability to learn, your emotions, all of those things that make us human. They're integrated into it. And the way, Neuralink company and Musk is selling all this is, it'll help quadriplegics. With a thought, they'll be able to move their limbs, right? That's never been proved in practice, but it's the way they promote it. So what this does is it's a chip that allows complete, not only control of the human mind, but integrating the human psyche directly in with the machine. So ultimately, people will be able to go do and put any thought into whole groups of humanity they like, make them afraid, make them traumatized, whatever. It's the ultimate genocide. It's like the extermination of sapient intelligence. And so to show you how this operates, Neuralink has been operating kind of off the radar for almost 10 years now. They have 3 big centers. Its major center in Phoenix, Arizona is just happens to be near 6 of the largest ICE detention centers. And what we found is a direct link between the way ICE operates and these Neuralink facilities. Now, to give you an example of that, in last year, when Neuralink announced they were going to expand, so far they claim to have only inserted it into 7 people, but they say this year they're going to make it over 1,000. In fact, they've announced the mass production of these chips. So it isn't just for people with quadriplegic problems, it's being mass produced. That's the first thing. Secondly, in literally the same month that ICE announces that the mandatory detention time when you grab somebody and put them in an ICE center goes from 14 to 38 days, and there's no documentation anymore, no more paperwork. You can just grab anyone you want, put them in an ICE detention facilities and hold them for 40 days, almost triple what it was before. That same month, Neuralink announces they're going to expand the experimental programs to involve at least 1,000 people. Well, when they say 1,000, it's a hell of a lot more. And, that's another clue that there's a coordination going on here. And even more damning, there's a place in Hawaii called the Straub Medical Center, which is the other place where the Neuralink is operating in a big way. It has major Army contracts. It has major Roman Catholic Church funding, and yet there's no federal record of it anywhere. It's an Army medical center, and according to our sources, this is where they're developing kind of the super soldier microchipped warrior. And again, ice facility nearby. So, when you put it all together, we're seeing the operation of this traditional trinity of church, state, and big money working on these genocidal projects. And, one of the sources in ICE who we have said, Musk is America's Joseph Mengele, and these ICE centers are our concentration camps. And I think that's not an exaggeration. And it goes into other stuff. I mean, like in Arizona, where this, the main center is, it's called the Barrow Neurological Institute. You can look it up. It's the largest neurological institute in the world. It's where all these experimental implants are happening. It receives huge amounts of this money, including through the secret slush fund that Cardinal Dolan brought in through the Catholic Relief Services. And Arizona alone had a 600% increase in private prisons in the last 20 years. It's the state with the biggest private prisons. So, we're talking about Trump, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, who was a former lobbyist for the private prisons, increasing prison sentences, grabbing anybody on the guise that they're illegal immigrants, shoving them in these facilities, and they're basically guinea pigs for these experimental programs connected to Neuralink. So, I mean, that's kind of the general thing we've uncovered, but there's all sorts of aspects of that we can go into.
Yeah, you've covered so much ground there in that first 10 minutes, Kevin. So, I've had several thoughts, but I'll just give you one or two.
Yeah.
So here in the UK, we've got Keir Starmer introducing the digital control grid, a digital ID, which Palantir is going to be a huge part of. So if you go back to the PayPal mafia, Musk, Peter Thiel, etc., it's all part of the same puzzle. We've got these tech billionaires worldwide with this exact same agenda to chip brains and to get us under the control of the AI digital ID grid. And I think it was the Tony Blair Institute here in the UK that's recently been funded, I think a couple $100 million by Larry Ellison of Oracle, one of the richest men in the world. They estimate he's worth up to $400 billion right now. And again, it's all, they're all tightening this fascist tech around our necks and positioning themselves to make billions and billions and billions off the back of it. Because Palantir, if you're familiar, viewers, with Promise software, which Robert Maxwell was pushing, which had the back door for the intelligence agencies to get in, Palantir is like Promise software on steroids. It's absolutely terrifying. I mean, with Promise software, it was just used by governments, and basically it was to put information in, hash the data, track people down, etc. But now Palantir, it's way more than that. It's not just government contracts. There's business contracts. They're steering warfare and bombing, based on algorithms and mathematics. So what Kevin's saying, all of this ties together.
Yeah. And, the really alarming thing, and this is the warning sign for everybody watching this, Musk has announced that they're going to start mass producing these neural chips this year. By the end of 2026, he says they will be able to be surgically implanted mechanically. I mean, there won't even be human involvement. You'll go in, a machine will stick it into you. And also they've found a way to get past there's a neural fiber around the brain, and they found a way to get around that. So I'll give you an example of this. When I was a street minister years ago, but also as recently as about a dozen years ago, I knew this fellow. He was a homeless native man, and he was a good source of information in that. He would tell us about these Catholic street nurses who would come around and grab people and they'd disappear, and into the same hospital that William Coombs was killed at, St. Paul's. Now, I came back one day and he was lying there. Donnie was just lying there, kind of out of it. And I thought he might have been on drugs or anything. He wasn't. He was like catatonic. And his friend said the nurses had come by and shoved stuff up his nostril. And we know the nasal insertion and transorbital, they used to lobotomize people this way. They go in over the top of your eyeball and cut the nerve fibers here in the front of the cerebral cortex, right? So these implants of Neuralink chips will happen not just somebody lying on a table surgically. There can be different ways that they can insert it into people, right? And this is what we have to watch for, because the entire population is now targeted, frankly. If this is the agenda, and I think everything is pointing to what you're saying, that it's a corporate elite plan to basically completely enslave the earth and the earth's population. And we're like into this new global civil war against a terrible kind of slavery, which hits us within, not just in manacles, but manacling who we are, our brain, you know? So, I mean, this is something that should take precedence over any other concern people have. It's the ultimate omnicide of the human race we're talking about.
So you've talked about Elon's relationship with the White House. What's his relationship with the Vatican, and how does this tie into the Catholic Church?
Well, you know, he describes himself as a cultural Christian, right? Not tied to any religion. That's not true at all. He's got a long history with various prelates in the Catholic Church, including Dolan. Also, you know, when you've got to consider Trump and Musk as a unit, because they operate as a tag team here. And one of the things that, do you remember when they tore down the West Wing of the White House to create a ballroom? Took hundreds of millions of dollars to create a ballroom, and people who worked on the site were telling us that, in fact, there was a lot of technology going into that West Wing. Well, what it's pointing in the direction that this is a new kind of operational center for this new regime that's taken over, whatever you want to call it, and it's going to operate out of there. And again, you look into this stuff and you see the imprint of Vatican funding everywhere. And so it's like, it's not surprising when you look at the reach of the Vatican Bank, but the long role it's played in funding Neuralink. I mean, it keeps popping up all the time in these records, right? And the fact that by ensuring no oversight, the point is you don't know what's going on. It's like, that's why when children are being killed en masse right here on the coast, everyone could say, I didn't know anything was happening, right? Because, you know, it's kept secret, and also people don't want to know. So, I mean, we're seeing history playing itself out again. You know, like my friend Frank Ermanson says, you're all on the Indian reservation now. You're trapped, right? So that's what we've got to look at, what to do about that, right?
All right, we've got almost 1,000 people watching live presently, and I just want to remind everybody that Kevin has got excellent books out, links for which are in the description box below this video. If you want to email Kevin, watch some of his other stuff, contact him on Telegram, etc. All links are in the description box below this video, and there's also a link to our previous videos with Kevin as well. And something else that ties into this is the Lucifer telescope. What is that, Kevin?
Okay, so this has been around for a while. It's a Jesuit-run observatory in, again, Arizona. It's near a place called Safford, Arizona, and it's not that far from Phoenix, where all this stuff is going on. Now, years ago, I was contacted by a woman called April Martin. She was a social worker among the Gila Anasazi, or Apache people. Now, there are two major Apache reservations near the Lucifer telescope, the San Carlos and the Gila reservation. Gila, for over 30 years, is at the highest rate of disappeared children of anywhere in the country. And the Anasazi people, and I know because I've spoken to some of their traditional elders, they had a story that for many centuries that long before the whites ever came, a door opened in the sky and dragons came out of the sky, or lizards, okay, if you like, snakes. And they brought evil into the world. And when they mentioned the Lucifer telescope, you know, people were trying to find out why it's called Lucifer. Now, Lucifer means light bearer. Okay, he was like a fallen angel, a bearer of light for humankind. That's how they justify it. But the point is that April Martin, the social worker, said she tried to investigate why so many Gila Reservation children were going missing. And she was shut down quicker than you can imagine. The police threatened her. She got fired from her job as a social worker. Nobody wanted to talk to her, but some of the survivors came to her and said, yeah, they're all going over there into that thing they call a telescope. And they said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's a facility there. They take children in there, okay? And they don't call it Lucifer for nothing. So we figure it's another ninth circle outlet. And what's significant is the Gila Reservation is almost on the suburbs of Phoenix, where this Barrow Neurological Institute is, where 6 ice centers are all clustered in that state. And don't forget, Arizona is directly south of the Mormon-run state of Utah. And like I mentioned, the right-hand man of Musk in this whole thing is a guy called Jared Burchell. He's a Mormon elder, was a Mormon missionary. He was an advisor to the State Department, and he ran not only Dogecoin, but now he's running the Neuralink thing as kind of second in command. So, you put all that together, and it's pretty obvious what's happening in terms of not only the disappeared children in that, probable ninth circle involvement. And by the way, April Martin said some of the remains of people who have been found there, Native people, and this is a common thing, Native people are often found dead all over the West, all over North America. Missing organs, missing body parts. I mean, classical satanic ritual kind of evidence. And so, I mean, that's that aspect, right?
Well, thank you for all the questions coming in for Kevin. Please keep them coming in, and we'll start to get the questions to him. So you're saying then that the Mormon Church was supplying kids to Neuralink?
We believe that not only the Catholic Church through its vast child trafficking network, but the Mormon Church, which, don't forget, as we've talked about, it's a mirror image of the Church of Rome when it comes to these satanic rituals. We've had a whole nest of Mormon survivors who I've interviewed talk about being taken underneath the temple in Salt Lake City, the tunnel connecting them to the Catholic Cathedral just down the road, the same kind of rituals going on. And so clearly the children, you see in these experiments, as we learned in Canada in the Indian hospitals, they want children because they're more pristine, their brains are more pristine, and the results from an experiment are evident more quickly in a child. They're more malleable, they can be programmed quicker. So they want them and for these experiments. And even though they admit to only 7 people having these insertions, you can count it on the fact that it's going to be a lot more. It's happening as we speak. And all those families that are disappearing, don't forget, Trump deliberately separated the children from the rest of the family. And, the hysteria he created around immigrants was so high that it allowed, the blind eye, just like Jew hatred or native hatred or whatever, it allows these people to go ahead and do these things. And so people are being rounded up as we speak and taken into these facilities. We're quite definite about that.
The most commonly asked question is, how can this be stopped? What can people actually do about this?
Well, we actually have a lot more power in our hands than we realize. I mean, because, the whole internet and everything is designed to make us feel intimidated. They've got all the power. Look at the horrible things they're doing. He just invaded Venezuela and took out the head of state. What can we do in response to that? It's designed to make you feel that. But we find on the ground, the closer you get to a situation, the more power you actually have. So, don't forget, all we did was announce that we're going to conduct a court citizens inquiry into Dolan, and he steps down the next day. That is not a coincidence. They are so vulnerable because they have so much crime and blood on their hands, and they know it. So the first step is education, but then saying to people, as we often do, where these things are happening in whatever Catholic church. We have all that evidence of where it's happening. Just go and have a presence there. Just stand there with signs, and that starts collapsing them. They start panicking, and when they panic, they reveal even more, and people start breaking ranks and coming through. Our sources in ICE, in the State Department, in the Vatican, they all came forward only because we made a public stink. They wouldn't have come forward if we had just been doing internet dialogue about this. They've got all that contained. I mean, XCOM is run by Musk, Twitter and all that. So it's when you step out from your own fear and take an action, you recover that at a human level, and you're standing with people and you realize I can have an impact. That's why, we wrote this book at this time, because, Governing Ourselves. It shows you how to set up your own local common law investigations, your local citizen assemblies. In America, they've got an added advantage of having locally elected county sheriffs who are answerable to the people. So you go in, I think a great thing to do, and one of the things we're probably going to plan is in Phoenix, start creating a stink at this Barrow Neurological Institute and at the ICE centers. There have been a lot of protests. There's people working for us who do not like what's going on. You appeal to them, you just start creating a shitstorm, and you don't give up. And you're going to see, we forced, Ratzinger out of office. We forced 3 other cardinals to resign just by making that stink. So it's a question of starting where you are and learning from the lessons of what does work when you take these people on.
All right. So next question then is, are the native people's bodies found with organs missing? Is this done in a mass scale and involving Big Pharma, the Vatican, the Mormon Church?
They've been found. It's not on a mass scale, but there's individuals who've been found. One example of that I know from personal experience is here in British Columbia, when the first a white woman went missing, so suddenly it became an issue in the press. But there are all these Native women been gone for many years, and they found bodies. And I know through a guy called George Brown, he was a former Native RCMP officer. He said the first police reports showed that there were missing organs from all these women who were found in northern BC. We know the Chinese general responsible for the organ trafficking in China was on the board of directors of Sinopec, which is one of the oil and gas companies operating in BC, forcing Native families off their land. And then all that evidence disappears from the police records, the court reports, any media reports. So it happens all the time. And don't forget that they're very blatant about it now. They don't try to hide anything. Think of those 800 baby skeletons in Chum, in the Catholic, cistern there. And they bore all the signs of satanic ritual killing, the missing heads, all that. The Garda cops who we spoke to said, yeah, it was satanic killings. But then the Catholic Church and government step in with their whitewash and say, no, we don't know who these children are. We don't know how they got there. So that's why you need to operate your own investigation, have your own media, take your own action, and then they're on the defensive. One of the reasons I think Dolan collapsed so quick and resigned is the Buffalo Diocese is facing financial bankruptcy, and all of this evidence about Joe Moreno's assassination is coming out now. Everyone's talking about it. So they're on the defensive. That means the power is with us. We just have to push, and they give. Trust me, that's 30 years experience talking. I know that works, right?
So how much trouble is Dolan in right now?
Well, he's protected, of course, and he's in trouble, but they're going to skate it on side. I think one of the reasons, Trump attacks other countries and launches mini wars is to distract from all this stuff. There's no accidents happening now, right? When all the dirt about Neuralink and Dolan and everything is coming out. So they'll distract, and he'll be, relocated in that. But the point is, the people around him know he's guilty, and those are the ones you can appeal to. It's how we found out about this policy of crimen solicitanus in the Catholic Church, about how you're not to ever tell the police. An insider in the Vatican Library came through and gave that to us just less than a year after I had my first protest outside the Vatican. So, it all has an impact, and you can never forget that, right?
Yeah, we said months ago on this channel that just to get the Epstein story out of the news, Trump would either invade Iran or Venezuela, and here we go.
Yeah.
So Trump recently met with Netanyahu, and Jenny wants to know if Israel plays into all of this.
You see, they're very smart. Mossad and the others, they don't ever come out and openly associate. They just work in the background. We know financially, yes, the Israelis are involvement in that. And other people have documented that really well. But I just want to say that in relation to that, they're traditionally have been the means by which the American public stay on the side of Israel by, saying that this is a moral issue to support issue because of the Nazi Holocaust. And that's kind of an Achilles heel for Americans. They can't really see past that to what role it plays in the world. It's like when you talk to Catholics about their church, they think of it as a church and not the oldest and biggest money grabbing corporation in the world in human history, right? there's that blind spot that's created by religion, and we have to work around that all the time, and that's, I think, part of the whole issue with Israel.
All right. So next question. Is Epstein connected to Neuralink, the Zorro Ranch, and Epstein? Because the Zorro Ranch was never really investigated, where we've had survivors on saying that they were trying to get the babies off them and all kinds baby farming and stuff going on.
Yeah. At that level, it's all the actors are connected or they know of each other. Now, Epstein was kind of like the poster boy of everybody who had a grudge and had a theory about who was really responsible. And they want us, in a way, focusing on the one person, for the 3 minutes of hate, right? I'm not saying he wasn't guilty, but why is he being held up all the time when there's all these other malefactors? And so, yeah, I mean, we always, in the common law movement and in the common law court, for many years, we've always said the issue is systems of power, not individuals. They're just the hand puppets, the wart on the corpse, if you like, right? I mean, the point is we have to stop these systems of power because they give rise to everything we're dealing with right now with Neuralink or any of it. Right?
All right. So next question. We saw the bombing of Nigeria recently as well. Why do you think Trump actually authorized that is the next question.
Well, don't forget, these are both oil-rich nations, Nigeria and Venezuela. It's about the oil and the gas, but it's also, he's a smart corporate guy. He knows the value of creating distractions and never letting your enemy know, exactly what you're doing. Everyone needs to read The Art of War because they sure do. You got to know that you win not by being obvious, but by creating an impression that you want your enemy to think of you. And so he's got to appear to be, even when he isn't, totally infallible, totally powerful. I can go in Venezuela, like he said, I'm running the country now. And you wonder, why isn't this psycho locked up? But why is every level of America, including the Democrats, colluding with it? So, I mean, it raises questions of what's really going on, not what is appearing to go on, right?
All right, you got a question from Cloudicles, which is... The ninth circle is not covered by many people. Please, Kevin, would you cover this in further detail for those who really want to learn and know?
Oh, you can, in some of your programs with me and also on our site, murderbydecree.com, we go into great detail about what it is. In a nutshell, it was set up in the Middle Ages, possibly as early as the 12th century. Dante refers to it. It refers to the ninth or lowest level of hell, where people who betray sacred trusts reside with Satan in this frozen lake of ice for eternity, right? So betrayal of a trust, what it is, it was a cult started definitely by the time of the Jesuits, who used it a lot to control popes, cardinals, and politicians, kings all over Europe. It's a child sacrificial cult, intergenerational, so you're born into it. They sacrifice their eldest child, torturing, raping, and killing your own child, and then cutting them up and cannibalizing them, drinking their blood in a direct reflection of the Catholic Mass, where it's believed that the body and blood of the innocent restores you, gives you eternal life and salvation. It's based on that. It operates all over the world. It's especially strong in Europe, where it began, but we've had survivors of it. We just did a case that ended on October 6th of survivors of the Ninth Circle, naming all these top people. You can't become a pope unless you're a Ninth Circle inductee. We know that a brief example of that was mentioned in our court case was the present guy, Robert Prevost, took part in a Ninth Circle ritual with former Pope John Paul II in September 78 when he was ordained as a priest, Robert Prevost. And if you're willing to take part in that, you go on a red list. You can then you're an acceptable candidate to be a pope. If you don't go along with it, you get blacklisted, you're off, you'll never be pope. So everything's controlled that way. And one of these survivors who was at the ceremony when that happened, she said that he had a look of glee on his eyes as he cut that child's throat and then drank her blood. I mean, this is who we're dealing with, right? Behind the mask, of the smiling, beneficent, white robe Pope is a mass murderer. And Vatican records, eyewitnesses, they all testify to this.
Have you got anyone you could bring on, Kevin, to talk about Ninth Circle? Any witnesses or anything?
Yes, as part of the screening process, we did ask the witnesses how many were willing to go public, and there's several of them who are, but their voice would have to be masked and they'd have to be darkened out. Because that's kind of one of the things we insist on too. Like, they're dead if ever they go public. They may be dead anyway, even if they haven't gone public. But one woman in particular, I know she's getting on and she wants to talk about it before she dies. So we can try to arrange that, definitely, right?
So next question is, are you saying that they have to make a blood sacrifice to be a pope?
Yes. And don't forget, to a Catholic, you are drinking blood when you have communion. The priest changes the wafer and the wine into the literal body and blood of Christ. It's a cannibalistic ritual. And that's not accidental. It's where you kind of reprogram the human mind to accept the fact that child killing and cannibalism are acceptable.
So W wants to know if Scientology has a role in this.
I don't have any direct evidence about that. It would be worth researching. I wouldn't be surprised, but we haven't focused on those folks. It's kind of like I say to people, like, hunt out the evidence and we'll look at it. But we don't want to do a blanket condemnation. I mean, all religions operate the same way, especially if they're state authorized and get charitable tax status. They all jump to the tune of the state.
Yeah, we've had quite a few Scientology survivors on over the years. It is a very bizarre organization. Cloudicles wants to know if you are willing to talk more about Mark Rutte and his crimes against humanity.
Okay, so he was former president of the Netherlands, now the chief of NATO. And his name came up. I first heard it when in 2010, when I was in Europe, when I was speaking to Tils Nieuwenhuis, one of the Ninth Circle survivors, for the first time. And she mentioned how she had seen Mark Rutte at Ninth Circle ceremonies. He had helped conceal the numerous cases involving the Dutch royal family in these Ninth Circle rituals. And he was a participant, concealer, and now he's in NATO. So, I mean, he was named in the court verdict of October 6th as guilty of these crimes against humanity, since in absentia to life imprisonment. Right?
Got another Ninth Circle question just come in from Rod. Will the Ninth Circle's sign-in sheets that were being kept in the Vatican dating from 1869 be released soon, at least in part?
I can't give you a date. It's in the hands of the court. Well, they're guided by two principles. On the one hand, they want to show it as much as possible. But by doing that, don't forget this is an ongoing investigation, and they can't do anything that will compromise witnesses, sources, and future cases. So it will be released. The date 1869 is significant because that's when the papacy declared itself infallible, incapable of error. And after that was kind of a green light. Okay, we're safe now. All the governments are going to go along with this. Therefore, you can kill anyone you want. So, I mean, we think at that point, the Ninth Circle came out of the closet and began to operate more openly after that.
All right, folks, we've got about 20 minutes left with Kevin, so please keep your questions coming in. At the hour, we've got Dan Welch coming on to talk about Trump stealing Venezuela's oil, which is worth $17 trillion, apparently. Wow, that's a lot of resources.
Reason enough to go to war, yeah. But could I just announce another upcoming show that we've agreed to on?
Yeah, absolutely.
People ask what you can do. Well, really, what you can do in the face of this global tyranny is take back power in your own nation. And we have people coming on from the Republic of Albion in England. They declared a constitutional republic this past year, and they're going to come on and talk about Albion. But also, we're going to have a discussion of that with not only me talking about the Canada experience for the last 10 or more years, but also there's, and this is kind of a pre-announcement, that by July 4th, which is the 250th anniversary of America's Declaration of Independence, there is a group of people in 9 states of people who want to declare independence from Trump's regime and establish new constitutional conventions to reestablish the republic on the ground. We want to get information about that on that show too, because it's very exciting. It's how you fight the corporatocracy, reestablish your own sovereign political, spiritual, and personal power. Right?
All right. So next question then. Let's see. We've got a lot. Oh yeah, we've got quite a few people who asked for your thoughts on silver, because the silver price has spiked up recently. Do you follow that, Kevin?
No, I don't. That's not one of my strengths or interests, actually. So you'd have to have somebody who knows.
That's fine. Do you know anything about Peter Thiel, Palantir, and Peter Thiel's lectures on the Antichrist?
No.
All right, we'll save that for another show. Quite a few people are asking about arrests on, the cases that you previously mentioned. Any updates?
No dramatic arrests. There have been people detained who were not named in the case, but they were accessories. And you kind of got to work in to get a big guy. You got to work in from the margins with people who they know and get more information. There have been attempts to deputize police. There are continual attempts to, as I mentioned before, among Native people especially, who are already kind of independent of the system. They've gone in and seized Catholic churches as reparations for genocide. That's what we emphasize, the bigger things. It's dramatic to see somebody led away in chains, but it doesn't change the system. No, it targets individuals. And while you have to do that in common law, name individuals for crimes, we have to stop the system from operating. So that's why we should think in terms more of how are we going to seize these properties and seize the assets of these convicted criminal churches and organizations. So, that's where we always like to steer people.
Please talk more about the Citizens Tribunal commencing this month in New York, Buffalo against Dolan. How can witnesses and helpers get in touch?
Well, some of the folks listening or watching right now are those people in Buffalo, New York. And I'm not sure if they want their emails handed out right now, but I can definitely connect folks to them if you write to itccsoffice@protonmail.com. And it's going to start in several stages. First of all, there'll be an announcement that a citizens tribunal to investigate these crimes are happening. Hold a forum in which eyewitnesses can come forward, and then convene the actual court along the lines of what we've done all along, including in Europe. Issue the summonses, make a big issue of it. And so, where it's another pot we're going to stir. Now, with all of this new information about Neuralink and his Dolan's role in funding it, the secret funding and the shutting down of oversight, the use of prisoners from ICE facilities, it's going to be explosive. And so we want to kind of unite forces, people who are against the ICE detaining going on and all that, bring them all together so this court can be kind of a catalyst for all sorts of other good things, right?
Question from Harvest Moon. Are there any new names that will shock the public?
Well, I gave you one today, I think. Jared Burchell. Check him out. He's an assistant. He's an assistant to Musk, and I would especially check him out, frankly, because not only because of the Mormon tie and his involvement in all of these things, but it's always the number 2 people who are more involved in the dirt and making the operation happen. Musk is too public, too much of a figurehead to be stupid enough to associate directly with these crimes, and he's concealed. But often when you dig away at the secondary people, you'll find a lot. So I would check that guy out, Jared Burchell, Mormon, see what you find out.
Are Kevin's books on Amazon?
Yeah, until they take them off. Because, I'll tell you, somebody told me that Jeff Bezos, who owns it, has a $500 million yacht. Well, here's a message to him. Why are you withholding up to 1/3 of my royalties when I'm a poor, struggling writer? And I'm not the only one. I've had emails from other people saying they never get paid all their royalties by Amazon. So come on, Jeff, do the right thing. Pay us our royalties.
Why are so many famous people suddenly becoming Catholic?
Are they? Let's hope not. That's probably
I'm
that's a public relations thing to say we know who we're backing the right horse. The Catholic Church has been the model for the corporatocracy. One really that's why they're buddies with China so much. They operate under the emperor notion. People don't have rights. Everyone obeys the one authority, and that's the way of the corporatocracy. So that it makes sense for them to prove that they're all loyal club card carrying members of the club, but it doesn't mean anything in practice. It's really, when you look at all this stuff is acts of desperation. You only invade other countries when you're desperate, right?
Will mainstream media change its course? Will they finally stand on the side of the people?
Why would they? We have to be our media. If anything, it's getting a lot worse. They're not mainstream. They're corporate. They're controlled. We're the mainstream. Let's produce our own media, people, like Sean's excellent program.
Yeah, I mean, we are the counterweight to the mainstream dinosaur media.
Yep.
But it's just a shame that so many people still absorb all of that garbage from these media entities. The minute they told us that Saddam Hussein has got weapons of mass destruction, all credibility was gone. Yeah, people are still believing the utter horse poo coming out of the mouths of these just pathetic. You look at these people, these BBC, etc. broadcasters. They just look like puppets, just it's just like fake people.
Yeah, I had a good example of that. Just a short little anecdote. We had in one of our early protests, the media show up, and a woman came over and said, "What evidence do you have that children were ever killed in these Indian schools?" And I pointed to my woman next to me, said, "This is Harriet Nahani. She witnessed a killing. Why don't you interview her?" And the TV camera woman looked in terror and turned around and left.
Of course.
That kind of sums it up,
Was Jackie Onassis a Jesuit kitten?
Was Elvis? Were the UFOs? Like, I don't know. Whatever scenario works, folks. Whatever gets you through the night.
Oh my goodness. All right, let's see. Let me get a more sensible question. What can the public do to assist you?
Learn, stay in touch, look at our websites, and write to us, itccsoffice@protonmail.com, to start generating in your community everything we're doing. Read my books and take the initiative where you are. But we're part of a global movement now, a resistance movement of people taking back sovereignty. It's much bigger than any one issue. And we've got to unite. Now is the time to unite, overcome all the false divisions they seed between us, political, religious, whatever. Common ground, we defend our humanity, our children, Mother Earth, against tyranny and mind control. Okay, so that's our basis of unity, folks. So just contact us, get on board, and education and then action, right?
Yeah, and all of Kevin's links are in the description box. We've got about 10 minutes left before we go to the Venezuelan guest. And so please get your final questions in now. So New Leaf wants to know, what do you think the real reason is for Musk's having so many children?
Well, those people experiment with their own children. When they're in the ninth circle, they always sacrifice their eldest. If you're a closet member of the ninth circle, you don't do it as openly, but you do use your children. And I wouldn't at all be surprised. But who knows? It's just, ultimately, he's not the issue. It's, what do we do about people like that, right?
You're getting asked about two different names. Can you say something about Robert Pickton, or do you know anything about Jack Smith?
Well, I know the Pickton case really well. He was the alleged serial killer in Canada who made a lot of Native women die. In fact, he was a fall boy for the Lee Harvey Oswald figure. I know that because they would, right over here, about 2 miles from where I am in the Musqueam Indian Reserve, Pictons were bringing, they were the body disposal crew. They weren't the killers. The killers involved former prime ministers, military people, local Catholic archbishop. And the Pictons were on the body disposal crew. Willie Pickton went to jail for it. He was killed in prison conveniently when the stuff began to surface that he had been the fall guy. So it's ready, it's right in our backyard, right over there. They found women's bones mixed in with pig remains, just right down the road from where I'm talking. So, I mean, it's a symbol of what's happening right in your neighborhood. You just got to find it. And the best way to find it is seek out a homeless person, the poorest person you can see, and they'll see on the ground. It's like being on the bottom level of the Titanic as it's sinking. They know what's happening first, right? In steerage, not in first class.
You got a nice comment come in here. I'll read. Kevin, your documentary Unrepentant was fantastic and chilling. Sikhs in India suffered a similar physical and cultural genocide during the Raj.
Thank you, and please circulate it. We did that film on a budget, no budget, $1,000, and it's out, and it hit 1 million views within a month, and it forced the apology in Canada, forced out the truth of genocide. So our media, our documentary films really have an impact.
So you're getting asked about Kenneth Copeland.
Sorry, I'm ignorant. Who is that?
Can you recommend any books on the Ninth Circle?
There's a book in progress about it by some of the people who are our researchers. So yeah, but it's big, and it's in the works. But we think instead an actual whole documentary film on it is necessary, and it's one of the things we hope to be working on. But you can see references to it in our interviews and also murderbydecree.com.
So is the Vatican why is the Vatican still in the United Nations without status?
Because of big money, and because they're a political force in the world, the oldest empire. We go into great detail in this book, Dethroning a Rogue Power. Everything you need in answer to that question can be found in there. And because, if anything, things are going more in their direction. And that should be a concern for people, knowing what goes on behind the robes, right? Under the robes.
Did Pope John I have any dealings with these topics?
He was notorious. He brought in the policy of crimen to apply to all Catholics. Before it applied just to clergy, he made it mandatory for every Catholic in the world to cover up child trafficking and death or be excommunicated. And, he's known for Vatican II, where he's seen as the liberal who kind of supported a policy of ecumenism, which means you reach out to other religions. Yeah, to absorb them. It was part of the first step towards the one world religion, right?
All right, next question. Are these documentaries available on Kevin's website?
Some of them. Yeah, Unrepentant. We can send you the link. Just write to us. We'll send you the link.
All right. So does Kevin believe the Roman Catholic Church is the Antichrist and they are silently giving orders behind the scenes with what is happening in the world, including the United States?
I think that what Rome represents, the Church of Rome represents, is Antichrist. It's a counterforce in the world against the spirit and the teachings of Jesus. Now, every Protestant faith in the world once believed that. They all described Rome, not an individual as Antichrist, but this, in the book of Revelation, he says the beast with 7 heads, the 7 hills of Rome. They're referring to kind of the entity there, or whatever you want to call it, represents that Antichrist force in the world. So, yeah, I believe that very much.
All right. So, was the Vatican girl murdered in the Ninth Circle?
Yeah, somebody remind me of her name.
I can't remember it either.
Talked about it. We talked about it on the show. Yes, she was. No, she wasn't killed. According to the witness who saw. Remember, I mentioned about Prevost being at that induction ceremony before.
Yep.
As a priest. Orlandi, last name. It's coming. Her name was Orlandi, and she just vanished, a teenager. She was there. She was raped and tortured, but she wasn't killed. The eyewitness believes, because she had some contact with her after, the eyewitness believes she was used by the Ninth Circle after that for entrapment purposes, sexual blackmail, entrapment, murder. They use people as sleeper agents. She thinks she's still alive. She'd be in her 40s or 50s by now. But Emanuela Orlandi, yeah.
Yeah. All right, we've just got a couple of minutes left. Let me just pick some final questions. Is mainstream media just a distraction, irrelevant stories, and no real criticism of Trump, etc.?
I'd say so, and worse. Oh, I wanted to also push a book of mine that we never talk about much, but it gives an overview of the last 50 years of how this corporate system came about. And it's another one of my books, Memoirs of a Revolutionary, and you can get that on Amazon too. Thank you.
All right. Will George Soros ever be held accountable? Have you done any research into him?
Yeah, he's an old Ninth Circle participant. You know, there's a picture we published of Hillary and Trump and Dolan all sitting together laughing. You know, it's kind of like they're all in the same club, guys. There are no Democrats and Republicans, right? Yeah, but accountability is a term invented by the system to make you think justice is possible within it. And when it comes to all these serious crimes, of course there isn't. But it keeps everybody on the hook. Oh, you know, if we lobby enough, go to the right judge, we'll get justice. Make them accountable. Like, why would somebody who's a dictator how could someone be accountable with that much power? You know, you got to dethrone the emperor.
So are all monarchies infiltrated and involved in the horror show?
Well, by nature, they think they're God, right? They place themselves above everybody else. You know, Mon, one, Archon, leader. So that's why personally I'm an anarchist. Anarchist means no leaders, no authority, but we the people.
Right, we're almost finished then. So what would you like to say in conclusion, Kevin? And huge thank you for coming on. And
well, to remind you, everyone of our follow-up interview on Sean's show on 3 weeks from now on January 24th, where we have the good folks from Republic of Albion and more about how you can build something on the ground to fight all of this evil. So I hope you tune in then.
All right, huge thank you, my friend. Please check out Kevin's links in the description, and we'll see Kevin again on the 24th. You take care. Cheers.
Thank you, Sean, and everyone.
Thank you. All right. We've got Dan Welch coming on next to talk about the US snatching Venezuela's oil and the kidnapping of Maduro, the geopolitical situation. He's got a history and literature degree from Harvard, very, very well educated, speaks 5 languages. So when this video finishes, it's going to take you over to our video with Dan. So if you've got any questions about what's going on, because all we're seeing is this nonsense in the mainstream media, if you've got any questions about what's going on, then please get them ready to go into the chat with Dan. So I'm going to end this one now, and we're going to go over to that next one. So thank you for joining in this evening with Kevin.